Okay, I can count you down if our tech folks are ready.
I think that's okay. I think we're already live, so I don't think we need to do a countdown. We'll just welcome everyone back if that works.
Okay, that's fine.
That's what I think Jane said. So all right, we are back now in session. I'd like to welcome everyone back, and hopefully our feed will stay up. We apologize for we've been having just a lot of technical issues today. So we'll move on to our third commendation of the evening, which is a commendation of school and district front office staff, clerical staff, and specialists. And Jeffrey Morgan, our board vice president, will present.
Thank you. Thank you. Tonight, we're recognizing our office and clerical support staff who are an integral part of the function of our schools and district office. And I've got a few bullet points I'm going to read here, but by no means does all the bullet points that I have really indicate our thanks, our gratitude for all the things that our office staff and clerical supporting staff has done during this last year and 4 or 5 months. So again, we just want to say thank you. But here are a few bullet points that I have. They have been the front line of communication throughout the pandemic and were the virtual face for the Rio Rancho Public School and their respective campuses. Their positive and upbeat responses inspired confidence and help to calm people's fears. And I think we all understand how things just got real crazy at times. They answered calls for assistance and were relentless in helping those in need. They were amazing in getting help to staff, students, and families who were in need or a crisis. They were creative in meeting the needs of staff and students and were continually finding solutions to new problems as the rules from the state changed day by day, and I think and sometimes it was hour by hour. No day was ever the same. They played a major role in keeping open the lines of communication with students, families, staff, and the community. Some spent hours dealing with issues related to quarantining of individuals at schools or in departments. At the school sites and at the district office, they managed COVID entry protocols for the school and department offices when the district reopened. We could not have survived without their support and assistance this year, and we are thankful they are part of the Rio Rancho Public School team. So at this time, I'm going to see if some of the other board members have comments that they want to make. Again, want to say thank you to our office and clerical supporting staff.
Thank you, Vice President Morgan. Noreen Scott.
Yes, I just want to echo what was just said by Vice President Morgan. We are very blessed to have such good staff, and being on the front lines during all of this has not been easy. So I add my gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Cullen.
There we go. Thank you so much for all your work. It's been a really tough year, and you're such an important part of the processes for us to have the students in school and all the changes that we had to do. You were so important to making the district run smoothly. So we really do appreciate all your efforts. Thank you.
Okay, and Wen Coleman.
So I just really believe that they're such an integral part. And jokingly, I say, if you ever really want to know what's going on or need something, that this group of people are the people to go to. But no, I just have to say that as a parent and as a board member, the appreciation that I have for what you do and for the role that you've played. Um, Throughout the years, I'm just so grateful, and thank you, especially this year with everything that we've experienced that we could have never imagined. Thank you for just hanging in there and for just being diligent and supportive through all of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. You know, and sometimes I think Jeff said it, you know, on the front lines. I think it was you, Jeff, who said that. Like sometimes it's this staff that gets the most crankiest people and everything else because they are, you know, they're really the faces of our district. And so we're truly grateful for all of our district front office staff and our clerical staff and all of our specialists. Jeff, did you have anything more you wanted to add for that commendation tonight?
Yeah, you're muted, Jeff.
Oh,
That too.
I
I
could
just
hear
want to
him.
I just want to say thanks to my wife. Very good job. You come home and just in spite of what's going on, you still come home with a good spirit. So I want to say thank you.
That is sweet, and she will like you better now for it. Vice President Morgan's wife works, I believe, in the Cleveland High School,
That's
and so we're
correct.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, he knows exactly what he's talking about when he talks about these things, because you know, as couples, we all know we all like to talk to each other, all the hardships that we go through, and so he's very much aware of everything that's happened this year. Do we have anyone on from our front office staffs or anything like that? Just in case. Okay, at least that's on. Okay. Well, thank you, Vice President Morgan, for giving that commendation. We're grateful for those individuals. Okay, moving on to Dr. Cleveland. I never asked Dr. Cleveland. It's been a craziness in here. And before we do that, Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything? And I know we had our principals in here, and I was down on the floor and had my thing looped around my neck, so I couldn't even have you give anything. So I apologize for that. But would you like to add to our commendation tonight?
Well, thank you. I would just add pretty much what has been said. They were on the front lines when people called, needed help. We called and needed help in a building, or when they called here wanting assistance from one of our departments. And so they just went the extra mile. I know they would spend a long, long time making sure that parents got what they needed or students got what they needed. And so I just want to add my thanks to that. And you know, with regards to principals earlier, they have been our rock this year, and it has been a really, really challenging year for them. And yet they just stayed the course and worked hard and made it happen. And so I just would add my thanks to the principals as well. They just did an outstanding job this year. And obviously in the school settings and the departmental settings, we're a team. And so whether it's the front office staff folks and the clerical support and the administrators, we're all on the same team and we all work very closely. And when you work well together, good things happen in a school or a department. And we're really blessed with teams that work very well together. And so I thank them all.
Yes, and I, as a board member, I can't help but I think that it's important that we take the time to recognize the people that we work so closely with. And so to Jane, I'm looking over at her, and to Kim for everything that you do for the, I think I am amazed at the supportive attitude and the great, no matter what, just you always are so willing and so accessible. And it's just a wonderful experience to have you as somebody that I get the chance to know and to work with. So thank you so much to both of you.
And I think every single one of us agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. And I would have fallen apart this last year without you all. So thank you.
Yes.
I told my husband, actually, I'm like, I just need people to always have everything on my calendar for me. And so I know exactly where I'm supposed to be. And so I'm just beyond grateful for the guidance that they've given us. So thank you. Thank you, Wen, for bringing that up. Is there anything else from any other board members? I know a lot has been said, but if you have anything else you'd like to say. Okay.
Real good.
When is your hand still up or? Okay, you just took it down. Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we will now move on to our reports section of our meeting. Our first report is on the extended learning time update. Janice Chenault, our elementary school improvement officer, and Renee Salcedo, our secondary school improvement officer, will present. They were here with us just a little bit ago, and now they're not
Oh, where'd
in
they
with
go? Yeah.
us.
Good evening, President Galbraith, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. Thank you for giving us some time to just give you a rundown of this past year's extended learning time program. It was different than what we offered the prior year. There were some changes in what we could do, and so we added the entire district this year. So we wanted to give you just a short, let you see some of the images of what happened and make sure everybody understands, what this means when we sign up for this every year. So extended learning time program has 3 components that are all required. The first is 10 additional days of instruction. So even though we have additional hours above and beyond what the public education department requests, we still have to do 10 extra days. So that's a non-negotiable. All of our staff has to receive 80 hours of professional development or participating school staff. So for our district, it was everybody. And before or after school tutoring or learning opportunities is the third component. The 80 hours of professional development we are able to incorporate into our current schedule for the most part, but we do have staff that go above and beyond throughout the year and add hours to that. We had, for our before and after school tutoring opportunities, it was interesting this year because we didn't have kids in person. So we had to create virtual opportunities for our students. And I will tell you that our teachers stepped up significantly. For elementary, we met as a group, teachers completely volunteered. I mean, they did get paid, but they volunteered to do this, and they held Google Meets with students Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night. We actually had some teachers even offer to do Friday night if students wanted that. When you would log on, we had 2 to 4 teachers that would sign on for a time slot, either at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Students would receive the links in their WAGs from their classroom teachers. So those were sent out to school administrators and then to teachers, and teachers would send them to parents through the Remind app. As it evolved throughout the school year, we had a great idea from one of our teachers to create a coupon with the code on it for specific students that needed support. So if they identified a student that they really wanted to attend, we had electronic coupons that teachers would fill out and directly send to parents, showing them when their child could log on and get additional support. In some cases, we had the same student showing up every 4 nights to different meets with different teachers and getting support. There were nights that we'd have 5 to 7 students, and then some nights they would only have 1 student that would log on. It would just vary depending on the night or what help the kids needed. When we started this right about the time that we came back in person, but we still had a lot of students who were home and not attending school. So it was a way for them to get additional support if they had questions, or parents could get supports for students. The students who were in person could still attend at night. It wasn't just specific for students who were at home. And so we were able to do that for the duration of the school year, and it worked wonderfully. And I'll let Renee talk about middle and high school.
And at the middle and high school, we let the schools controlled the schedules, but basically at each school, tutoring was available in each content every school evening. And then also some schools did it on Saturday. We continued that through being hybrid. And once students came in as hybrid students, we also offered in-school opportunities. So at that point, some of the tutoring was face-to-face and some of it was still virtual. But it was offered both ways once students started attending. And then the schools, basically we let schools know even if one student is needing that tutoring, we wanted to keep it going. There were some nights or some contents that, you may go for several days or maybe even a week and no one attended. And then we started pulling those down. But if one student needed help, then we kept that time slot open for them.
The one, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but Shining Stars Preschool is not included in that opportunity for extended learning. So their teachers do not do the 10 extra days and their students don't do the before and after, although they still are required to do a lot of professional development through their grant. So the 47 teachers came from our 11 elementary schools, which is a tremendous amount of offering considering the challenges they were facing this year. 26 in middle, and 29 in high school. And please feel free to stop us at any point if you have any questions about any of the slides. In elementary, we had almost 800 students who participated at least once. So that was a significant amount of students.
Middle school, 94, and high school, 322. And it's the same thing. Some may have participated once, some may have gone every night.
We wanted to just break it down by grade level so you could see how it's split out across the district. I know Board Member Coleman, you were asking specifically about students that needed extra support or students that had individual education plans. What we learned with students who needed more support, that's why we added those tickets, because we had students that weren't coming on that could use more support. So it was a way for us to really encourage them to participate. And the teachers saw that need with students in their class. Teachers who weren't tutoring but learned about the tickets love that idea, because then they could identify students they wanted from their classroom specifically to get supports. And you can see it was almost, pretty even, except for third grade. We had a large amount of students that attended in third grade. So besides tutoring, we also offered clubs and activities that students could participate in. We just wanted you to see the different opportunities that our teachers stepped up and offered for kids outside of just core curriculum.
And we had the same type of opportunities at secondary. It was really exciting that we could offer not just tutoring, but also these clubs virtually. So a lot of both middle and high school, but I think especially at middle school, they really stepped up and did a lot of club offerings virtually.
Through the extended learning, we had additional funds that we could support other programs. And so you'll see at the very end of this presentation that Kurt Schmidt has taken on a program with one of our music teachers at Vista Grande, and he's starting a summer music program. So Kurt came to us and said, can you help us promote this? And we had funding still in our budget, so we were able to offer that free for every child, including a t-shirt and supplies, lunch and dinner. And we were able to double the number of sessions. And I think Kurt could speak to it, but I believe the program filled up in a matter of hours, like a couple hours, it was full. And they needed more spaces and didn't have them yet. So for the first year of starting that program and offering that for kids, completely full. And that was grassroots by one teacher who had done this in another district and wanted to try it here. So although we think of extended learning as 10 extra days, there's so much more to it that's possible that we can do for kids that can enrich their education and their experiences without a cost to them. So that's another reason why we feel like it's really important to continue. And then of course, tutoring. Go ahead, Renee.
Oh, and I was just going to say, and this is one of the ways, it's not the sole way that we're funding our credit recovery summer school right now, but we are using some of this money to help provide free credit recovery for the high school students. This is where we're getting some of those funds.
Yes, Ms. Coleman, Board Member Coleman.
Yes, thank you. I'm curious and looking at, and I wanted to just address it now because I know we're going to go on to something else. How did the club Best Buddies, knowing that it's two different groups within the school, I'm just curious how that worked virtually.
I would have to, so I didn't participate in any of those club meetings, but I know that for the virtual ones, even though there are two sides to that, I'm sure that they joined. And I wish I could give you a better idea, but I'm sure that the sponsor had everybody pulled together for those virtual meetings.
Okay, thank you. It's just such a wonderful group.
I don't know if I'm in position to comment on this, but my wife heads up that Best Buddy group. And I can tell you, she had frequent virtual calls with these guys, and they were pretty exciting. She kept them very interested. She kept them live. So if that helps, that answers your question. It was very interesting. Matter of fact, I had the privilege and the opportunity of looking in on a couple of them, and it was interesting. So she kept them live, active, and exciting. Yeah.
Mhm.
You guys are good to continue on.
We just wanted to show you the breakdown of the requirements for the professional learning. So our teachers spend 42 hours full days in some type of professional learning within the district, and 44 hours in their professional learning communities when we have early releases on Wednesday, and that goes from kindergarten to 12th grade. So budget, we wanted you to see just a breakdown of the budget so you could get an idea of, you know, what we do exactly with the funds. And so I don't need to go through every piece with you, but it gives you a good idea of how much is put into salary, how much is put into supplies, and, you know, what we're really doing to try to get materials and activities into the hands of kids. We want to thank different district office departments. This isn't something that's done in isolation at all. So we have the help of RADA as we're looking at the data and the results. CNI, of course, curriculum and instruction. Finance is amazing in working with us and saying, you know, here's your money. And if we need to move money or work in collaboration with other departments, when we worked with fine arts, they were able to help us share the funding so that we could get what we needed. Communication is always fantastic in supporting everything that we throw at them. Of course, IT, we couldn't have done virtual tutoring or anything we did without the assistance of IT, and payroll and working with setting up how we were going to pay teachers, fine arts, and then all of the administrative assistants on campuses collected all the timesheets for us, got signatures, and sent them to our office for processing. And then Michelle LaRossi, who works with us, entered every kid and every teacher by hand every 2 weeks into the system. And Vicky Calzada worked with us to report to the state. So we couldn't have done it without everybody here. Just some pictures for you to see. I know you've seen these. You received the presentation, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on them, but just different opportunities that were presented for kids so you can see. I do want to share with you, these puppets were actually purchased for the prior year's activity before we had to go online for our last year's virtual in 1920. So this is Miss Barnett's at Colinas del Norte. We went ahead and sent her these supplies, even though she couldn't do it the previous year, and she incorporated it to this year. And the activity wasn't just puppet making, but they tied it with literature. And so they were building stories and doing puppetry. And every week she would post in different puppets that the kids had created. So just an excellent example of giving kids a way to connect what they're doing academically with their arts. And these are, again, just pictures from her another art club. I believe this is your archery, Renee.
Yeah, Eagle Ridge Archery. And then a creative writing club.
This is the last thing we wanted to share with you. This is what Kurt Schmidt is taking care of this summer for his Arts of Success. And thank you to Stapleton Elementary because they're hosting, they're central. So they offered to host, which, well, a lot of schools did, but they ended up being the most central location. So again, it filled up right away, and classes, I think he's going until, it says 7 a.m. to 12 and 1 to 6. So we were able, I believe, Kurt, if you're still on here, is over 300 students he got pretty quickly. We stand questions you may have. Are you there, Kurt? Oh, yay.
I'm here. Of course I'm here. No, yeah, it filled up within a matter of hours. There were 100 kids in the morning, 100 kids in the afternoon, and we had a wait list of probably 150 more kids. So very popular, and just, you know, I thank Jenna for the collaboration. I think it was a wonderful, and we should actually name the teacher. Richard Guerrero is a music teacher at Vista Grande, and he's absolutely wonderful, and just took this by the horns and ran with it. And it was art, music, and PE, and with hopes to expand in the future.
And a shout out to Dean Gallegos, who's our new director of food services. He worked with us to get the meals that we need for students as well. So again, it really has been a district effort. When people talk about extended learning, they really only think of the 10 days. I don't think they realize everything else that we're doing for kids and supporting kids with. And so I'm grateful that you let us share this because it really is valuable to our community. And we stand for any other questions you may have.
Sorry, it took me a second there. Thank you so much. First, before we go to questions, I just want to give Dr. Cleveland an opportunity, and then we'll go right into questions. Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything?
I may want to after I hear the other comments. It might be better for me to kind of close out after I've heard some of the questions or comments the board has.
Okay.
So if you wouldn't mind, come back to me.
Okay, sounds great, Dr. Cleveland. Thank you. So really quick, I have a question. So when we talk about our 10 days, are the 10 days connected? Like when we go for funding to get this extended learning funding, are the 10 days connected to all of the money that comes, all these other programs that we're able to fund? Is that all in one package, or is it you can do extended learning in different ways? Does that make sense? Okay.
That's an excellent question. We get a certain amount per student. That's above and beyond what we typically get for students. And so we're able to fund everything through that additional funding. And I don't know if finance wants to add to that, but it's above and beyond what we would typically get. So the previous year we had around not quite 300 elementary students that participated. So our pocket was of course a lot smaller, but was enough to cover the program sufficiently. And this year it was a much larger amount because it covered every student in the district K-12.
Okay, and that's because we had the additional 10 days. We were able to have funding per student forever. Okay.
Yes.
I see.
So for example, the year prior, we still did 10 days. At secondary, we had some Saturday things that we did, and elementary had, well, you didn't actually get to do your 10 days at the end because then the pandemic. But throughout the year, we had things on Saturdays for secondary that counted as part of the 10 days, but we didn't touch every student. So, we could be more flexible with our time.
Ours last year it was going to be in person. It ended up being virtual, and we did 10 extra days virtually. And so the teachers did everything virtually with students.
Okay.
Now this year, because we included every student has to go 10 days. So we'll be doing 5 at the beginning and 5 at the end. Our plan moving forward is to really work on those routines, procedures, relationships, SEL at the beginning of the year for 5 days, because we know it's been a lot for everybody, and really just focusing on establishing those routines and systems and relationships. We're going to have groups of kiddos, elementary 2 grade levels that have not been in the building as much as they could have been or at all. So we really want to focus on that at the beginning of the year.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for answering that. I appreciate that. I don't know, Dr. Levin, if you wanted to add, I saw you kind of came on. I'll go to another board member unless you have anything else on that.
Just go to everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think we may have some of the same questions, but I would like to respond to a couple of the questions you did ask.
Okay.
So I'll do that when we get
Okay.
through.
All right. That sounds good. All right. Jeffrey Morgan.
I have no questions.
Okay. And Noreen Scott.
I love the creativity. That is wonderful. I mean, that's very inspiring, and it really shows the caliber of our teachers and the energy they're willing to put behind it. Thank you so much for sharing this tonight.
Thank you. And
you're very welcome.
Wynn Coleman.
If you could come back to me here, there's just some things that I might want to ask at the end.
Okay. Catherine Cullen.
We're almost to the end. I was the last one.
I know.
So it sounds like, so there's a number of schools that did not do the extended learning, and I don't know how many school districts ended up doing this year. Do you know, Dr. Cleveland, by chance?
Yes, it was the majority, it was like 60 some that have committed to extended year and K5 plus, or a combination of the two. So The majority of districts did do the extended year. We were certainly not in the minority.
Okay. And it certainly sounds like it's really successful by everything that I'm hearing and what we're seeing here with the students. So definitely worth the extra 10 days to get them additional instruction is what I see, Jenna. Like, yeah. So you feel that way
I
within
do. I do, Board Member Colin. I know, I can tell you when we came back in full session after students came back, we were tutoring for a while. And I brought the teachers together and I said, do you guys want to stop? Because we had, 65% of our elementary students back in the building. And they said, absolutely not. If it brings one kid to us that needs more help, we want to keep going. Some of them would tutor 2 hours a night just because they wanted to be there. We had one little boy would come on, just to watch them and the questions the kids would ask, and just to have that time with the teacher one-on-one through this year was exceptional. So in my opinion, it's worth it. I think our teachers do a remarkable job.
it certainly sounds like it. I know that some families weren't too happy to go an extra 10 days, but especially with everything that went on with the pandemic. And I think that this additional instruction definitely helps them out and, give them a little head start for next year. And I appreciate everything you guys did. It was extremely creative, like Noreen had said, and it just goes to show you that well worth it. These kids got the additional instruction. The tutoring was so important and really so needed. And I do really appreciate that. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. When are you ready, or do you want more time? I have more I can go if you're
Really?
not
No,
ready to
why
go.
don't you go ahead? Go ahead.
Well, I feel better about this. I'm going to be very honest, and I've talked to Dr. Cleveland a lot about this over the last few weeks. Just as a parent, I've been so tired, and it's hard to lose days in the summer, and I've heard so much from people in the community. As I see this presentation and hear from you, I feel like, okay, like I see the good that comes from it. And I apologize to Beth if she's put stuff out, but I think we need to somehow like really, and I don't know. I mean, if people aren't going to see it, if they're not going to see it, but we really need to get this out more with, there's more to extended, learning than 10 days, and maybe all of these wonderful points and that you went through and some of these great pictures, if we can put those things up too, because I think for me, all I can see, especially at the end of the year, was I am so tired and my kids are still in school. And so I think when we see all of these other things, it really makes a huge difference. It gives us the why, as to why we're doing it. And maybe it's something again that we address, at the end of next year and see how it goes. As at least this next year we can tag it onto both sides of the year instead of it just being all at the end of the year. And it was pretty rough. But I just want to thank you for presenting that, because it helped me to feel better about it. And I do think somehow, and I apologize to Beth if she's like, I have put it everywhere. I put it everywhere and you're just not seeing it. Because I would love to see that and have something, I guess, to even present to people who ask me about it, that I can give them more information. So it was a great presentation. So, okay, I know Wynn wants to talk, but I also have Catherine with her hand raised. Wynn, are you ready?
I am.
Okay.
So I appreciate your patience, even with the laughter from my other board members. But, I thank you for acknowledging kind of what was happening with our special education students with the tutoring. But can you speak a little bit to maybe some of the things that you experienced with the teaching, the programs and things like that, some of the challenges that you might have experienced this year, and kind of plans on how things like this will be like kind of ahead, like what you're looking at as far as ways to mitigate maybe some of the things, some of the learning circumstances.
Yes, Board Member Coleman, that's a great question. And I see that Joy Morales is on here. So Joy, if you feel she wants to add anything. We've talked a lot, and there's been a lot of research around accelerated learning versus the remediation. We were part of a presentation with a superintendent in Florida talking about what they were going to do in the summer to mitigate those circumstances. And it was a lot of what we did this school year for extended learning. It's finding those opportunities to connect what the kids are learning with also looking at are there any standards that might have been missed prior that we need to trace back and pre-teach right before we go to the standard. But there's a lot of research that if you're going back and trying to review things and assuming kids didn't learn information, then they lose interest and they aren't tapped into what you're doing. So we're moving forward with looking at our essential standards, but also as we're presenting those essential standards to students, tracing those standards back to the prior year, looking at how we taught that the previous year during COVID, seeing if there's anything we need to give a little shot of reference to before moving into that next standard. So the key is making sure they're still engaged and interested with what they're doing, but going back and making sure they have the prior skills that they need to continue moving forward. And I see Joy popped on, so I don't know if she wants to add anything.
No, you summed it up beautifully. You know, the thing about accelerated learning that we want to be cautious of is that we don't want to stop to do what we call filling in gaps, because research shows that creates more gaps. The gaps get bigger. So we don't stop instruction in order to fill in gaps. We do just what Jenna explained. We want all of that just in time, that review, really knowing where the learning has come from so that we know how to move forward with it and then get our kids caught up.
And we're really doing this same thing at secondary. You know, this year we've worked on compacting the standards and really finding those key standards that we're going to interlace through the classes. So it really is about accelerating learning instead of, you know, looking for those gaps.
And I would add that, you know, we've been very committed to the New Mexico DASH process the last 3 years, and it's a great system for improvement. And every school is identifying those high leverage skills that kids need from grade to grade. So with the work of CNI and early foundational skills in literacy for math and ELA, we know that is essential for everything. And so we're measuring that every month and looking at those essential skills as kids are moving forward. So that DASH process has been great for us to identify anything that we might need to infuse as well. Does that answer your question, Board Member Coleman?
It does. I'm just, I'm wondering, as you're talking about, was the term that you used is accelerated? Is that, is that the message? I'm just curious that you think that the parents and the students are hearing, so it's looked at from a different lens.
Yes, anything that you would listen to outside or in education right now is all about accelerating the learning. So it's moving forward, that acceleration, while also looking at those stops along the way we need to pick up, but keep going. And we've actually worked with EAB and their presentations, and that's what they're presenting to districts across the country as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know if Jerry would want to add anything, but one of the things I would like to add is you might recall during the year that our children with disabilities got more tutoring help than any other from the very beginning. They had access to small group instruction when no other students did. And so beginning back in the very beginning of the year, we were meeting with special needs students all of the time. So I don't know if Jerry wants to build on that, but there was extra time that we built in for students with disabilities to try to help with some of the challenges that they were in. But they were in small groups by August and meeting on a regular basis. Jerry?
And I just want to say how appreciative I am of the district supporting us in doing that, because what it did was we were able to not have those areas where students would have gaps, and we just kept building. And you know, with some of the upcoming things, that's what we want to build on. We want to ensure that students did not lose any skills and keep building as we move forward and just keep our momentum rolling.
And Board Member Coleman, may I just add that some of the hardest conversations we had in elementary were with parents who had students with significant needs, and how much they wanted their students to be in school 5 days a week, because it was very challenging to try to meet the needs at home when the kids were virtual. So if we shut down or on Wednesdays, once we were able to go back 5 days full time, that was a huge relief for a lot of our parents that were trying to do their best while working, while having other kids in school. So we know it was very challenging for a lot of our parents with students with special needs, which is why we tried really hard in elementary to get all of them in who were willing to come in as soon as we could. And we were able to do that in September.
Good.
Jerry,
Thank
do
you.
you have anything else you wanted to add?
What I wanted to mention was even these short gaps, sometimes students with learning with disabilities can lose more than their general ed peers. So that's why it's so important to not have these long periods without attending school. So for example, right now we're doing an extended school year, and it's our students with their most severe disabilities attending so that they don't have these gaps when they return in the fall.
He gave a lot of attention to our children with disabilities. There are a couple of things I would like to build on that's been said, and as Janice said, the focus is really on acceleration and focusing on acceleration versus remediation. Those give two very different views to kids and to students and even perhaps to staff. Many of the case studies that were built out of that were after Katrina. And as they went in and looked by trying to accelerate the learning, they actually built a far stronger system after a horrific tragedy. And so we learned a lot from watching that in terms of acceleration versus remediation. One of the things, and I'm just going to jump around a couple of things that were said, the 10 additional days were not more of the same. And I think that was what was so critical. Students came and there were opportunities to do different things. And I think that sent them off home on the summer on a much higher note. They had a lot of fun the last 2 weeks of school. And we brought in a team, the accreditation team. One of the things that we looked at the feedback that we got from all of the administrative staff was how do we go back to making school more fun for kids? And we have lost over the years some of that joy of learning. And how do we get back to that by still meeting the standards and the expectations? And these 2 weeks, I thought, were really great examples of how you can do just that. How you can help children learn, but they also can have a lot of fun. But the intent was to send them out this summer on a high note. And for a lot of kids, that's really what I think occurred. Heard a lot of positive things. And if you have 200 parents who sign up their kids within an hour, you know that there are people that are looking for good things for their children in the summer. And that camp was an example of some really good things. I think we have to be really careful about any assumptions that we draw on last year and our planning for the future, and not allow that one way or the other to color what we're going to do. And we really kind of look at what it is we want to accomplish and what we need to do. One of the things we know that our state is under court order. And one of the components of that court order is that we'll have more instructional time for students. So I think in some cases, what people don't realize is it's not a choice of 10 days or nothing. What it is a choice of 10 days or other things. So what might be some of those other things? One of the other things that a lot of districts have been looking at, especially districts that have shorter workday than we do, of extending the school day and the workday. And that is not a bad idea at all, unless you're under a 3-tier bus system. So how much earlier do we want to start high school kids in the morning? And how much later in the afternoon do we want to hold elementary children in class? So extending the day for Rio Rancho or Albuquerque, which also is a 3-tier system, makes it much harder than, say, Las Cruces or Santa Fe that are on a 2-tier system. And if you ask me why are we on a 2 and they're a 3 and they're on a 2, I cannot give you an answer. And for 20-some years, no one's been able to give me an answer either. So I'm hoping that we'll look at that this year in the transportation study and try to figure out why that is. Realistically, do I think they're going to buy more buses for Rio Rancho and Albuquerque? Probably not. I don't think that's probably going to happen. But our schedule drives so many things. A longer work day, school day, is what a lot of the districts are doing. Some of the other districts are doing pullouts. And Janet and Joy talked about the dangers of pulling kids out. They didn't call it pull out, but here you are in the middle of your literacy lesson and you need to come with me because you didn't do very well next year. We're going to intervene with you. And so you don't hear that lesson. And on top of that, you're removed from that classroom. And our experience over many years has shown that pullouts are not very effective. I know that's how one district is going to do it. They're going to make their hours by pulling kids out. I would think that may not be what we would want to do in Rio Rancho. So the other option, and one that Renee talked about we did last year, would be Saturday schools. I don't know if Saturday schools would be more palatable than having those days during the year. I don't know how people would feel about that. As a parent, I personally would not have wanted it because my kids were very involved in activities on the weekend. And I would have hated to have seen them have to lose that for Saturday events. However, the ones that, Renee talked about were by choice only, those students who wanted to come. And so that made that situation just a little bit different. But I think you don't just do 10 days or nothing. You do 10 days or something else. And the something else don't seem to be of the quality of being able to add some additional time to do some of the kinds of things that you saw this evening. But again, if the decision was not to go there, then we would have to consider something else, or we would have to give all that money back. And that money is what funded all of those great activities. And so when we, of course, already have a budget built around that for this year. My last comment about that is several of the key legislators have indicated that their plan is to push for the 10 days this next legislative session. Some of those are pretty powerful legislators, and their response is because of the lawsuit and because of the court's demand for more instructional time, because we have the shortest academic day of any major country in the world, and because of where our student performance is in many cases. So they seem determined to still look at that, but no one can really predict what the New Mexico legislature will do with that. So I'm sure that will continue to be a discussion, and I think it could go either way. I think it could go, that they mandate it, or I think they might say no and consider some other things. But extended day won't work for Rio Rancho unless we get considerably more school buses. And I think that's all of my comments based on the comments earlier. But thank you. You all did a great job on the presentation. And the feedback I had is once parents were there and the kids were doing some of these neat things, they loved it. Our challenge, I think, as a district is to be able to do more of those neat things all during the year. And so I think that's the conversation that we're going to have is how do we bring some of those things that were joyous back into our schools again, that made kids really love to go to school. And the whole accountability movement was important. We needed that. But is there a way to balance the two? And I think there definitely is. So thank you all. But those are just some thoughts as we look to the future and planning for the future.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cleveland. And I see Catherine has a couple more things she'd like to ask too in there.
Okay, Dr. Cleveland, do you think that we're going to start seeing a push to year-round school in New Mexico? I mean, it kind of, I'm seeing that we're starting to edge that way, and I know there's a lot of data out there about year-round school. So, is that kind of what you're hearing?
Everyone has said that it's still on the table, Board Member Cullen, that it is on the table to discuss. So I don't know whether we'll move that direction or not. We've talked with some of our staff here, and some of our staff have been in school districts that have done it, absolutely loved it. We have others that are really opposed to it, who don't want the year broken up. Obviously, you get longer vacations more frequently, but not a long one in the summer, which we're very much used to. And the biggest question that comes out is, can you make it work for secondary? And would the board be okay, or the community be okay with running two separate calendars? And we have found districts, particularly in Arizona, that have done both, that have done the secondary and the elementary together, and some that have split it. So I think there are models to look at. But the thing that drives that conversation, and I know you're very much aware of that, is that the research shows the learning loss between breaks is not as great. And also it really gives a motivation to those who won't versus can't. So what often happens with some of those programs is that students who are still needing help have an opportunity to get it before the next session opens. So there's remediation built in during the year. And, algebra has always been, for everybody across the country, one of the challenging courses. It doesn't help you to get a lot of help at the end. You really need it at the end of the first if you're falling behind, and then you need it, as the year goes on. A year round would allow that, but we've not pushed year round. But we have been told that it is one of the models that is being definitely looked at, as are others. But the learning loss declines and the intervention, and for the kid who just won't do it, and there are a few like that, if you don't do it, then you get to make it up then and do a little extra work. And those kids that won't, all of a sudden, often reevaluate their priorities and do it. So, I think there's pros and cons both ways. And a lot of families really value their summer, the whole summer break. And if we were to ever have that as an option from the state, something to look at, we would certainly go out to our community and take a really careful look at it. But I do know it's very successful in other parts of the country.
Right. So that was my question is that, because I know some districts that do it across
Right.
some states, but are there any states that it's mandated to do year round? Or is it they let it go down to the district level? Because I'm just wondering if that's where our state is headed. Would it be like an optional, or would they actually try to push that all districts do year round?
And they haven't told us that. So I don't know whether they would or not. The one thing that might make us a little different is the lawsuit. And that we've got to have some kind of really clear-cut way that we're making up instructional time and that we are helping students get ahead. One of the things that I would share, and I think it's just interesting data that every school board should know, and that is that in New Mexico, our kids make the same amount of gain as kids almost anywhere in the country. In other words, if you look at NWA and you look at where they start and where they end, they make a year's worth of gain. The problem is that so many children in New Mexico begin so far behind that 1 year isn't going to ever get them caught up. So they need to make it in a year and a half, or over maybe 2 or 3 years before they will get back on grade levels. So it's where some of our children fall behind, which of course is the argument for early childhood and helping children be ready for kindergarten and first grade, so that when they get to kindergarten, they're not a year or two behind. We have children coming in that know how to read. We have children that know colors and all those things. We have children who don't know colors. They don't know what a letter stands for. They are years behind. And so the goal is, that's the challenge. It isn't that we're not making the gain, just that we're not making enough above that 1 year to help our children that are behind get caught up. Does that make sense? Okay.
Good.
Are there any other questions for me?
Board, if you have a question, will you raise your hand and let me know? Or you can unmute too. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. I think we're good. I really appreciate the going through all this. I'm still struggling. I'm not going to lie. It's a struggle for me. I am like Dr. Cleveland talks, our community is not used to certain things, and I grew up here, and so I definitely am one of those. And so, but seeing this did help me. So I appreciate everything that you did to put this together and everything that you've done really to create these wonderful programs and everyone who's been doing that. And we appreciate them. So thank you for being on tonight and report us. Okay, for our next item is to approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions of anything that needs to be pulled off the consent? I'll entertain a motion.
This is Secretary Scott. I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Board Member Morgan, I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Secretary Scott and a second by, I'm writing weird notes, by Vice President Morgan. Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, ma'am. Can you all hear me? Okay, good. Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Secretary Scott?
Yes.
Board Member Cullen?
Yes.
Board Member Coleman?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
Yes.
5-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. And do you have a charge cord, Catherine, for this computer? An extra one? Sorry, I just realized I'm borrowing board member Cullen's computer and it's starting to die, but I can switch to a different computer. But we'll keep moving as I go for that. So thank you. Okay, so we're moving into business. Our first is a report. The Board of Education met in a closed executive session at 4 p.m. on June 14th, 2021 under Section 10-15-1H2 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. The matters discussed closed limited only to those specified in the notice of the separate closed meeting. Item B is to consider the approval of the May 24th, 2021 unapproved special meeting minutes. Do we have any changes that need to take place on? Did I miss one? I did. No, you're good. Okay. So now we're on item B to consider the approval of the May 24th unapproved special board meeting minutes. Are there any questions or changes that need to take place on those meeting minutes?
Make a motion to approve the May 24th, 2021 special meeting minutes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice President Morgan, a second by Secretary Scott. Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, I can. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
5-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, and then for item C is to consider approval of the RRPS IDEA -B and IDEA-PRE, the special education application. Jerry Reeder, our Executive Director of Special Education or Special Services, is on to present.
Good evening, President Galbraith, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. I'm here to seek approval for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act application. What I want to let you know about this is IDEA-B funds are really to be used for the excess costs of providing special education and related services. They're supposed to be used to supplement state, local, and other federal funds, and they're not to be used to reduce maintenance of effort. So if you see the first, after the signature page, the first 4 pages are all the federal assurances that we must agree upon on how we're going to spend this money appropriately. And what we receive, our allocation is $3.2 million, and we are carrying over $484,000 for a combined total of $3.6 million for next school year. And I'm sorry I know you guys are all able to look at my application. This year they changed the application format and it's in a Microsoft SharePoint format. So as I try to print it off for you guys to look at it, it just kind of looks funky, and I apologize for that. But you know, our district, as kind of Dr. Cleveland alluded to earlier, we are very inclusive, even with our students with disabilities. And we believe that our students get educated better in the general ed classroom. And if we don't have to pull students out to disrupt their learning, then we know they're getting a better education. And we've always had that philosophy. And so we use a lot of this IDEA money to pay for staff, for teachers, so that we can maintain this philosophy and are able to serve our students well. I know there are a lot of pages here, and really the budget piece matches up with our budget that you approved, I believe, about a month ago for our IDEA 24106 funds. So at this point, I'm just going to open it up and see if you guys have any questions for me.
Okay, thank you. So before we go to Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add as I go to the board?
The only thing I would add is this is a very comprehensive application. One of the things I think sometimes people have a misunderstanding of is they think this pays for all of special ed costs. That is not true at all. But it's a significant addition to the funding that we spend out of our allocation for children with disabilities. In the beginning of this program, many years ago, we were assured the federal government would pay the cost of programs for children with disabilities. That never happened. Probably never will, despite the fact there's been several attempts to accomplish that. It certainly has not been. But this money is vitally important in order for us to be able to provide the services that we need. But it does not cover the bill at all for the services that we provide children. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Okay, we'll go ahead and go to the board. Catherine Cullen, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Wynn Coleman?
Yes, I just, Mr. Reader, are you able to, kind of talk to how much we're getting maybe percentage wise as compared to what that district actually is investing? I know that I worked with you. I had the chance to go to Washington, D.C. and advocate for full funding for IDEA. And it's a frustration that we don't have the funding that we were all along have expected. So how are things looking moving forward?
So when we talk about number 3 here, maintenance of effort, our district spends approximately $29 million in operational funds for teachers, education assistants, ancillary providers, to cover the cost of students with disabilities. And right now our population is about 15%, or students with disabilities is about 15% of that population. So I'm not sure if that helped answer your question.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, I know that funding has always been with IDEA has been a challenge. I mean, from the beginning is my understanding. So I'm just curious, are we seeing any improvement on that moving forward? Okay.
Actually, I've been in my position approximately 15 years. And 15 years ago, I think we were receiving 3 something million. So it has not increased in that time. You know, every few years, I don't know, 5 to 7 years, we do get a slight bump federally, but it hasn't really caught up, and it's not paying. The original intent was to cover like 80% of the costs, and IDEA does not cover that percentage when we look at it nationwide.
No, and I just want to say that I think it's really important as community members that that our voice is heard about this and really supporting the funding for this. So I know we're approving this today, but that we need to be a loud voice with funding for IDEA. So thank you. Thank you for putting this all the time into getting this set for us.
Could I add one other thing to that as well? And that is, not only has the funding not gone up, but as the board is very much aware, the severity of student need has dramatically increased over the last several years. So we're seeing more and more children with more severe needs. And it's becoming increasingly difficult to be able to provide everything we would like to provide for children who are at the highest need when the actual revenue has not gone up. We are supposed to have a state catastrophic fund to help with some of those situations. But so far, we've not been very successful in getting any state help to meet with those additional costs. So, and some are extremely high. My last comment is that we have been blessed. Every child is precious, and we're glad for every child who comes to us. Many families with children with severe disabilities choose this district because of the quality of programs that we offer in special services and at our school sites. So we have seen over the years a slight some years more than a slight increase in the number of people coming into the district. A little bit higher percentage of those come with children with disabilities seeking services for their children. So, and I think that's true being part of the metro area. Certainly rural areas may struggle to be able to provide some of those needs. So we often see families moving to more urban areas to get the specialized help they need, or help, for example, at Terry Tingley. And but we also see just families who choose it because they think that we do a good job. So I just want to commend the staff and special services for the really good job that they do. But I have to tell you, they struggle. Jerry struggles a lot. I see him fairly regularly with some of the needs that it has that we just are not able to provide for at the level we would like to. So I really support what Board Member Coleman is saying. We need to continue to speak very loudly. We would like to see these services paid for so that that we can meet those needs and meet the needs of all of our students. And that's always a challenge, but they do a really good job. Sometimes I know they feel almost like they're the victim of their own success, but that's a really good place to be.
And may I also, I'm just curious, you made me think of something, Dr. Cleveland. I'm just wondering if there's a way on the district website that we could do so, and this would maybe be a Beth question, that we could do something that would kind of give our community a way to really know how to advocate for some of these things. So just a suggestion, but I think that it's really important that our legislators are hearing how important this is. So
I think we could do that, and our Parent University is also a very good tool for people who might be interested. We could provide a session on Parent University on how to advocate for some of these things.
thank you.
All right, thanks. I think we're with Noreen Scott.
I just want to say thank you for the time and energy it took to put this together. I've worked on federal applications, so I know it's tremendously challenging. Thank you.
And Jeffrey Morgan.
Just want to say thanks. Appreciate the hard work.
Catherine, I went through that, right? Okay. Okay. Anything else, Jerry, that you wanted to add before we kind of go into?
No, not at this time. Thank you all for your support.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you. So with that, do we have a motion?
This is board member.
This is board member. I'll second what Catherine's going to say.
Okay. Approval of the IDA-B and IDA pre-application.
Okay.
And then Wynn seconded it.
We have a
right?
second? Okay. Do you want to give your second? We're good? Okay.
I second.
Thank you. All right. We have a motion by board member Collin and a second by board member Coleman. I'm just writing this in my notes at the same time. And Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, ma'am. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
and President Galbraith.
Yes.
That is 5-0.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay. Now on to, thanks again, Jerry. All right, now on to item D, consider approval of the Title III grant application. Suzanne Wynn, our Executive Director of Federal Bilingual and Native American Programs, is here to present.
Good evening, Madam President Galbraith, members of the board, Dr. Cleveland. I bring to you tonight for your review and consideration our Title III grant application. And as Dr. Cleveland mentioned earlier, though it is much smaller relatively than some other grant applications we apply for, it is very, very important. It is a supplemental funding source to support our English learners. And currently, we have 756 identified English learners who are identified beginning at kindergarten through 12th grade. which is roughly 4.5% of our student population. And we are richly linguistically diverse in our district, with currently 23 different languages represented as self-reported by our families. Our students, our task and challenge is to help our students meet the same challenging state standards as all other students. So in addition to our New Mexico content standards, we support our students in the languages of language arts, math, science, social studies, and social and instructional language through the 4 language domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. I think that's all of the information I have to share with you. I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Cleveland, would you like to add?
Just, Suzanne, how many languages are represented within the school district?
23 languages.
So we have children from a very wide variety of backgrounds. Thank you. That was all I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Board Member Coleman.
You know, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask this, but Suzanne, I'm just curious, within your department, will there ever be an opportunity, is sign language considered bilingual? And would that in any way fall under, or is that under Jerry's department, or?
We do have students who are English learners who speak American Sign Language. And we also have students within Special Services Department who have interpreters that support them all day long as well. And we also have American Sign Language as a world language at the high school level.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Catherine Collin?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Noreen Scott?
Yeah, my question is, what are some of the diverse languages? Ones we don't expect.
Let's see, we have Tagalog, which is a Filipino language, Russian, many native languages, including Navajo or Diné, Keres Toa Tewa, Zuni, we have Farsi, Romanian, Urdu, Korean, Laotian, Vietnamese, stop me at any time if you wish, Hmong, Chinese, both Mandarin and Cantonese dialects, Arabic, French, Italian, German, Japanese. Yes.
Where do these folks come from? Why do they come to our community, their families? How are they coming here?
There are a variety of reasons. I would credit Intel to a big portion of these linguistically diverse families coming in. Yeah, primarily Intel, but a variety of reasons.
Thank you very much. That's a pretty fascinating number of languages.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Very linguistically rich in our community.
Could I share just a quick story that was kind of interesting to that point of Intel? And Suzanne will probably remember this, but we had a student who was, I believe, Taiwanese, and we found someone at the university that would come in and help and tutor and whatever. And the parent came in, was so nice, so respectful, but said, this isn't going to do. And so we asked him why not. And he said, because the interpreter has too much of an accent. And I want my child to learn English without an accent. And so they're very conscious about the importance of maintaining their own language, but learning English and learning it very well. They've been a great addition to our district. We never perceive them as a hardship. They certainly it enriches us, but sometimes it's been a challenge. Suzanne's been very creative, as have others, of helping to find someone who can assist these students. But we see them as a great enrichment to our district and to our community. It's just a matter of sometimes finding the support that is very challenging. But I think it's just fascinating to know that we have children from all over the world. We also have some that come in as, I know the one family that helped earlier this spring. We do occasionally have some that come in with the military too. They come in with the bases and they come in for special missions or special training. And we had a group here from Norway that had come in to train here. So that's another source of some of our students are military families.
And thank you for adding that. And Jeffrey Morgan?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is our motion?
This
Yeah.
is Board Member Coleman, and I make a motion to approve, consider approval of Title III grant application.
This is Board Member Noreen Scott, and I'll second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion by Board Member Coleman and a second by Noreen Scott. Can you take a roll call vote for us, Kim?
Yes, ma'am. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
and President Galbraith.
Yes.
Missed my perfect record, not crossing your names
Yeah,
up.
that's right.
It is
Yes.
5-0.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very
Motion
much.
carries. Thank you. Okay. So for our next item, consider approval of calendar changes. And so Peggy Johnston, our Director of HR Operations, is on to present. Do you feel like you're always giving us these calendar changes recently? Right? It's been so rough.
I know I was going to say I'm back.
I know.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Cleveland, and members of the board. Thank you so much for allowing me to come before you this evening. So we do have another calendar change to look at. At the request of staff and the cabinet, we did reconsider starting our school year for our instructional staff in July. And what that means by instructional staff is our teachers, our educational assistants, really folks who are in the classroom with our kiddos. We proposed to move the start date of the contract for the instructional staff from Friday, July 30th to Monday, August 2nd. And to accommodate for that move, we would have to remove a holiday. So the proposed holiday to remove is President's Day, which is Monday, February 21. You all have heard from the public comment, so I know we probably don't need to address that too much this evening, but one of the big issues was giving the staff and their families that last holiday or that last weekend, in July. So instead of having to start on Friday the 30th in July, moving the start date to Monday the 2nd of August would allow for one more weekend with families. And it just psychologically sounds a little better to start in August versus July is what we kept hearing. And I'll stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. First, Dr. Cleveland, did you want to add anything about the calendar?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Okay, so I'll go to each member. I mean, we also received 2 additional public comments on this tonight about, the opposite way, which is true, is that, in February, they will basically have, I think it was one of the teachers that calculated about 9 weeks without a day off. So that is the other side of it as we go, if we go forward and do it this way. I personally am kind of inclined though to still have that extra weekend for teachers. I think coming back in July is just a really hard thing to put in your mind. So with that, I'll kind of just go through the board and you guys can ask any questions or give any thoughts. We'll start with Noreen Scott.
I have no comment.
Okay. And Catherine Cullen.
Thank you. I know that it sounds like we had a lot of response that the district has from a lot of teachers and staff. Is that correct, Dr. Cleveland? They were.
Yes, the vast majority of feedback we have had is moving it to August. But we have had, as President Galbraith has said, a couple have come in, and it is a long break. The last holiday would be the 17th, MLK Day, and then they would be, we would have the 3rd and the 4th off, as you can see, and then a whole week off in March after that. So there is some time, quite a bit of time in March, but it certainly does take it out of the month of February. But we have heard from most people have been not wanting to come back in July.
And I have seen some of that in regards online too. Some people have said, some teachers had said that. And then we did have a couple of public comments. And so I think that, I'm just opening it up. So when in this public comment that was, that Amanda talked about today, which I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I probably have you kind of address it. So they were saying that, the 9 weeks before the President's Day, but putting the in-service days, 6 in-service days towards the beginning of the school year, instead of spreading them out. I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is to that, but I wanted you to maybe address that and the reason why.
Sure. And so we did talk about that on our calendar committee, and I know that Jana and Renee are both probably still on, and they can jump on if they want to, but I think I can probably answer that. We just found that spreading it out was beneficial to our instructional staff. It's a little hard to overload them all in the front, and then you don't have those days in your second semester. We especially looked at having the 2 days in the second semester as teachers come back. It kind of gives them a chance to kind of get into the second semester, get in the mode for learning again. And then we find that having our students come back that third day, so the teachers are back for 2 days and then the students come back on that third day after the second semester, it's just a better situation for the district. We see less absences for sure that way. But I think it's just, we found that it's probably a better model for professional development. But if anyone else would like to speak to that, I'd be happy to have them do that.
Hi, Peggy. I think it was board member Cole, and I apologize. The other reason why we spread them out throughout the year is that's when the data comes in, student data comes in from NWEA, those 3 times a year assessments that we're able to sit down and look at and really dig into. We have a lot of data in our district, and sometimes it's hard for us to sit down and let teachers process and make instructional decisions. So we've broken that up. And then when we were getting information back from this data assessment, that was also around that time.
Thank you. I don't have
the other thing I would add, just as a point of comment, from the 17th to the 3rd of March, unless I'm counting it wrong, is 6 weeks, not 9. So I just wanted to be sure that that was clear. It's not 9 weeks.
Yeah, I think that 3rd of March is the school conferences. So yeah, I was looking at those two as I was looking through.
Yeah.
I guess it would be more for the secondary.
Yeah, that's true. It is. That's
Yeah.
elementary. My apologies, but
That's
it's
okay.
correct for secondary.
Well, it does help a lot of those students to have, it's not everyone, but yeah, okay. Thank you.
It's a stretch. The only other option, if we go the other way, is to pull it later into June, and people didn't like that either. So I think it's, I think that what we heard, start a little later and still get out on time.
And I was just going to say, because we've gone through this so many times this year of changing it. I mean, at some point, something's got to stick, because we didn't want to go into June, so we bumped that. And I've seen a lot of comments from teachers in reference to the August. So, I think just by what I've heard, what the district has heard, I'm in favor of going ahead and moving that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Catherine.
And hopefully the last time.
Yeah. Oh, don't say that.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Morgan,
No
you have anything?
questions, no comments. Thank you.
Okay. And Wynn Coleman.
The question that I had is, and I don't know if I posed this, but has there been, and why is it, for example, like we're not taking it off of winter break, with that being so long? I'm just curious. No, I'm not. Oh my gosh. I'm going to ask and I get my question answered. So.
When no one else can hear Catherine, so except for us here in the board.
I can hear her, and I have these on. So I just wanted just understand when we have that extended amount of time and we're wanting to do it in the second half of the year, and people are concerned about the length of time for between breaks in February, why we're not looking at like just one day earlier back. I just can't remember.
I think it's the 2 weeks has been just the, and it's not a great answer, but I respond, it's just the way it's always been done. And so I think that you could certainly look at that as one area. But again, remember, we went through a pretty lengthy process, getting feedback from every school and from the staff. And this was what they proposed, minus this one day. So it could be. There's no reason why it couldn't be. But that's just not what the members of the committee who represented their schools, they wanted the 2 weeks that we've had. There's one other thing too, and Peggy, if you wouldn't mind, just briefly, teachers also have personal days, which they can take, and many do during the year. And so if this is just getting too long and too difficult, they do have the option of using their personal day during that time. So there is a way to have a break if you save those and want to use those for that purpose. We give a little bit of a financial incentive not to use them, but it's not a lot. So Peggy, was there anything you would add to that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Dr. Cleveland. And in fact, we do have an incentive also that if in the previous year, if you didn't take more than 3 sick days, you actually get some sick days back as personal days. So people could definitely use their personal days if they wanted to in next year's calendar. The other idea that was kind of bounced around a little bit was adding one more day in May. The unfortunate thing is that puts us as coming back on the 31st, which is the day after Memorial Day. And that was pretty quickly nixed because we just don't think we would have any attendance. We don't think we would have anyone here for that, if that was our final day of school.
Yeah. Okay.
And I
Thank
agree
you.
with that.
Yeah, and I do too. I do too. I probably wouldn't send my kids. I probably shouldn't say that on YouTube. I'm getting eyed. Let's see, Noreen Scott, I see your hand's raised.
Yeah, I'd like to call the question.
What? Sorry.
I'd like us to call the question. In other words,
okay.
Vote.
All right. I will entertain a motion, Secretary Scott.
I move that we accept the proposed calendar as proposed.
Okay. Board Member Jeff Morgan, a second.
Okay, we have a motion by Noreen Scott, a second by Jeffrey Morgan. Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, I can. Vice President Morgan.
Yes.
Secretary Scott.
Yes.
Board Member Cullen.
Yes.
Board Member Coleman.
Yes.
And President Galbraith.
Yes.
Okay, that is 5-0.
Thank you.
And all I want to say about is taking a day from the winter break. We'd be back here in another 2 weeks after everybody wrote us. So just FYI.
I know. And it's actually a really similar kind of thing where they get that whole weekend, So yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's move on. So item F, to consider approval of contract extension with Balzano Government Relations. We have Beth Pendergrass, our Chief Communication Strategy and Engagement Officer, and also Chris Balzano of Balzano Government Relations here to present. Is Chris actually on? I didn't see him earlier.
No, just me.
Okay, I was like, I usually try to say hi to him. Okay, go ahead, Beth.
Good evening, President Galbraith, members of the board, and Dr. Cleveland. I am here to discuss the Balzano Government Relations contract. As you know, the contract allows for 3 one-year options to extend the original agreement. So last year we did the first year option. This would be our second year to extend that contract. I did provide the original contract in your packet in addition to the amendment. And so we are here this evening, or I am here this evening, to respectfully request that the board agree to extend the contract for an additional year.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Beth. Any questions from the board on the, go ahead, Catherine Cullen, you have anything? Okay, okay. Sorry, Catherine says she's still looking through some things. I don't know if everyone can hear her. Noreen Scott, any questions?
No, I was going to make a motion to accept the renewal of the contract for one more year.
Okay, I note your motion. I will write it down. I'm gonna just really quick go through the rest of the board members and see if there's anything else before we go for a second. Wynn, do you have anything?
No questions. I do have a comment though that I'd like to just kind of express. I know that this has been something that's been a discussion when this comes up for probably just as many years as I've been a board member. The amount that we're spending um, for having a lobbyist, and I think it now is close to $60,000 that we're paying out for that, knowing that there are um, services provided through the New Mexico School Board Association, knowing that we have had the budget cuts that we have. I have a concern about what we're spending in regard to this.
Okay. Wynn, would you like someone to address the concern, or do you want to just make the comment?
It's a comment. It's just I feel I am concerned about the amount that we're spending, knowing, like I said, that we can go ahead and take advantages of other services. New Mexico School Board Association offers that. We can be, we can be a voice. And like I said, knowing the budget cuts that we are up against and the shortages that we're dealing with, I have a concern about spending that much.
Okay. Dr. Cleveland, did you want to address before I go?
Well, just very quickly, I think one of the things that the board may want to consider in looking at that is that the School Boards Association does a good job and supports all districts. There are many times when districts' needs are different. And so they can't support one way or the other because the districts are very divided on certain issues. And so there are times then that they can't help and support us just because there's not agreement among the membership. There have been some times when that has hurt our district. And the one that comes to mind the most was in the late night hours when they passed prior year funding. And the next day we realized we had lost millions over the next several years because of that. So there are also costs in not having good representation. And again, that's the balance you have to make. Certainly there are costs, and Board Member Coleman's right. There are costs that are associated with that. And I would certainly not take away at all from the school boards for the role they play, just like I feel the New Mexico School Superintendents Association supports us. But there are times when our organization the majority may feel very differently than we feel, and that has happened on more than a few occasions. And we're actually not all together in being represented. And it's during some of those times it's been very useful to have someone advocating for Rio Rancho Public School District as opposed to the state as a whole.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland, for that. Wynn, do you have more before I move on to?
No, I think that while I see value in that, I also know that there's just a number of things that I have kind of had a concern about this. And so I appreciate that. And I do know that lens. So I appreciate Dr. Cleveland sharing that perspective.
Okay, thank you. Jeffrey Morgan?
No questions, no comments.
Okay, Catherine Cullen?
Yes, thank you. So I just want to make sure, so I know that you were saying that with the New Mexico School Board Association, sometimes we're not always in line, but the Chris Balzano does represent a number of school districts. So that certainly can also play a role because we're not exclusive clients of his. And my understanding is that he does represent other districts. But I just kind of wanted to say that when you had said, about the New Mexico School Board Association, that could become a problem too. I don't know if it would be a problem, if it has become a problem, but that is something else that sometimes what might be in our best interest might not be another one of his own of their company's clients. But I did have a question in reference to the contract. I was just trying to go through the amendments. And Beth, is it still a total of $53,937.50?
Yep, the cost hasn't changed.
Okay, I didn't. Yeah, I was just going through them to make sure that if there was any cost increase. Okay, all right, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I was muted. So we have a motion by Secretary Scott. Is there a second to Secretary Scott's motion?
This is Board Member Jeff Morgan. I second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Secretary Scott and a second by Vice President Morgan. And really quick, Dr. Cleveland, do you recommend approval of this?
I recommend approval.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us?
Yes, I can. Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
No.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Okay, votes 4-1.
4-1, and the motion carries. Okay. Thank you.
Can I add one other thing too? I want to just thank our delegation. They do an excellent job representing us, and they try very hard to do that. And so, and we hope that our efforts in terms of our lobbyists and the district itself, we support that because they have a lot of different hats to wear, a lot of people asking them for help. And sometimes they're really in need of information on a very short time frame, and being able to get that and deliver that to them is helpful to them, I think, sometimes in doing their jobs. But I just kind of wanted to add that they certainly represent us and represent us very well.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland. Okay. All right. We will now move on to our last item, which is to consider approval of award ITB 2021-016-FAC roofing contractor on demand. We have Michael Madrid, our purchasing director, and also Melanie Archerbeck, our executive director of facilities, here to present.
Good evening, Board President Galbraith, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Cleveland. As mentioned, this procurement is for a roofing contractor on demand. The solicitation was initiated on behalf of the facilities department. Response to the solicitation came from National Roofing out of Albuquerque and Roof Care, also out of Albuquerque. As part of the review of the procurement, we looked at both companies to ensure that they were responsive to the solicitation, that they met the requirements of the solicitation. I just want to highlight some of the past performances that each company has performed for the district. National Roofing has done work at Vista Grande Elementary School, Rio Rancho High School, Independent School, Rio Rancho Elementary School. They performed work here at the district office as part of the renovation phase 3. They performed work at Enchanted Hills Elementary as part of the mechanical upgrades. They were subcontracted for the roofing repairs. Colinas del Norte Elementary School also for the mechanical upgrades as part of a subcontractor. Lincoln Middle School as part of the HVAC replacements, and Visu Cleveland High School. Roof Care, they performed work at the baseball field house at Rio Rancho High School. They've done work at Colinas del Norte, Lincoln Middle School, Shining Stars, MLK, Eagle Ridge. They currently hold a CES price agreement for on-call roofing, and they are also the current on-call contractor for Bernalillo Public Schools. Recommendation for this afternoon is for a multiple award for both vendors. We want to make sure that the district has sufficient resources available to meet the needs of the district. Plus, it gives us an opportunity to vet pricing against each of the companies. The ITB did allow for multiple awards based on the best interests of the district. Some of the services that the contractors will perform are maintenance, repairs. They'll also be performing various roof inspections, letting the district know as to what condition the roofs are and what preventive measures the district should be considering as far as those repairs so the expense doesn't escalate down the road. So in closing, just we're respectfully soliciting the board's approval for both National Roofing and Roof Care be awarded as the district's on-call roofing contractors as part of this solicitation.
Thank you, Mr. Madrid. Appreciate it. Now that I'm not on mute. Board, if you have questions, will you please just use your raise hand icon if you have a question for Mr. Madrid? Okay. Is there?
This is Catherine
board
Cullen.
member. Go ahead, Catherine.
Okay, this is board member Catherine Cullen. Making a motion to approve the ITB 2021-016 FAC roofing contractors and award a multiple award to National Roofing Roof Care. I don't think you're on mute. You're not on mute.
Gesundheit.
All right. Did we get that? Did we
yeah.
all get that motion
Sorry,
over, Jeff?
Yes.
I was going to make the motion, so I'm sorry. So
That's okay. So we have a motion by
This is-
Catherine Cullen. Go ahead.
And board member Coleman, I second.
Okay, and a second by board member Coleman. Kim, can you take a roll call vote for us?
I think so. Vice President Morgan,
yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Cullen,
Yes.
Board Member Coleman,
Yes.
and President Galbraith.
Yes.
It's been a long night. That's 5-0.
Thank you. The motion carries. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, board.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone who's presented tonight and everyone who's been with us. And we've had so many wonderful commendations tonight too, and we appreciate everyone. Really quick on our advanced planning, we have Thursday, June 17th, 4:30. There will be an audit committee meeting. It will start and open and go to an executive session. Monday, June 21st will be an executive session. Really quick on that, do we want to come in, board? I know that you're pretty much done. I know that Vice President Morgan will not be able to be in for that, but the rest of us can meet in person, or we can do that virtually. Okay. Okay.
You guys can all decide that.
Okay, I'm good with in person. Okay. All right,
I'm
we'll go
fine
ahead.
with in person.
Okay, we'll plan for that one for in person, and Jeff will come in through virtual. Then Thursday, June 24th, and there's also an executive session. Monday, June 28th, will be the Finance Committee meeting. Also on Monday, June 28th, will be the regular board meeting. July 12th will be another regular board meeting, and Thursday, July 15th, will be an audit committee meeting, also open and an executive session. And so with that tonight,
And then we also have, I just wanted to point out, we have
Yes,
leadership
please.
conference
Okay, yes.
coming up July 8th through the 10th
8th through the 10th. Yep, there's leadership conference. If you have not
through
talked,
NMSBA.
yeah, if you have not talked to Kim about that, please do so for the NMSBA leadership conference up in Taos. Okay, and with that, our meeting tonight is adjourned. Thank you all so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.